Welcome, my dear students. So, today I would like to cover some of the topics of system software. So, till now I have completed three modules of compiler design. So, today we are I am starting the first module of system software. So in the first module of the system software, so these are the topics that are included. Okay. So in the first module, so these topics will be included. So first one is introduction to system software. Next, machine architecture of simplified instructional computer and simplified instructional computer extended version. Next, assemblers. In that, you will study basic assembler functions followed by machine dependent and independent assembler features followed by assembler design options. Lastly, you will study macro processor. In that, introduction to macro processor followed by basic macro processor functions. So before I start system software, so let us review the basic terminologies. So first, instruction. What is an instruction? Instruction is the command given to a computer to perform a certain task. What is an instruction? Instruction is a command or a direction given to a computer to perform a task. What is a program? Program is a set of instructions written to solve a problem using the computer system. What is a program? Program is a set of instructions written to solve a problem using computer system. Software. What is software? Software is a set of programs developed to carry out certain tasks on a computer. Software is a set of programs developed to carry out certain tasks on a computer. So softwares are classified into two types. First one is system softwares and second one is application softwares. Okay. What is system software? System software is a set of programs that support the operations of a computer. What is system software? System software is a set of programs that support the operation of a computer. System softwares make it possible for user to focus on problem to be solved without needing to know the details of how the machine works internally. It is the system softwares that make it possible for the user to focus on problem to be solved without needing to know the details of how the machine works internally. So the details of how the machine works internally will be taken care by the system softwares. The details of how the machine works internally will be taken care by the system softwares. So user can simply focus on problem solving. System softwares are used in compiling and executing the user programs. System softwares are used, they are required in compiling and executing the user program. So examples of system softwares. Which are the examples of system softwares? So these are the examples of system softwares. Operating system, assembler, compiler, macro processor, loader, linker, debugger, text editor, some of the DBMS packages and software engineering tools. I repeat, so these are the examples of system softwares. It is operating system, assembler, compiler, macro processor, loader, linker, debugger, text editor, some of the DBMS package, some of the DBMS packages and software engineering tools. So let us take an example to see how system software supports in compiling and executing the user program. Let us take an example to see how system software will help in compiling and executing the user program. Suppose you have been given a problem to be solved on a computer system. What you do, you develop program on a piece of paper. For a given problem, you develop a program, you write the program on a piece of paper. Okay, first step is over. Now, you have to enter the program into the computer system. You need a text editor. With the help of text editor, so such as TC or any other editor, with the help of text editor, so we can enter our program and we will save our program. Okay, right? So we have written a C program for solving the problem using the text editor. Text editor is required for writing the program. We have completed writing the program. We have saved the program. The next task is compiling the program because the computer cannot understand your C program, right? Computer understands machine level language. Computer cannot understand your C program. We need a translator. We need a compiler now. We need a compiler to translate our program. So the compiler will translate your C program into machine level language program. Okay, the compiler will translate our C program into assembly level or machine level language program. Okay, right? So now the C program is converted into object program. Now C program is converted into object program. Now object module is ready. Compiler has produced object program. Now object module is ready. So this object module, object program must be stored in the computer. This object program must be stored in the computer, stored in the memory. This object program must be stored in the memory, right? Before the object program is stored in the memory, we have to reserve space in memory for our object program. Before that is, we have to reserve space in memory for the program, for the object program. We have to reserve space in memory for the object program. Who is going to reserve space? Operating system. System software. Operating system will allocate reserve space in memory for storing the program. Okay, so right, so if there are many object modules, suppose the compiler has produced many object modules, so system software called linker will combine all the object modules into one object module. Okay, so if the compiler has produced several object modules, for example, then we need linker. We need linker to combine several object modules into one single object module, right? Next, so operating system has reserved space for this object module. Operating system has reserved space for this object module. The next thing is to load the program into main memory. To load the program into the already reserved space. What is required? Loader is required. Loader is a system software. So loader is required to load the object module into main memory. Loader is required to load the object module into main memory. Okay, right. Next, you have to run the program. Once the program object program is loaded into main memory, so to the program must be executed. What we need to execute the program? Processor is required to execute the program. Who is going to assign the processor? Operating system. Operating system will assign processor to the program. Operating system will assign processor to the program. It also allocate input output devices. Operating system also allocates files, information in the files also. Suppose if the program wants to read from input file, operating system is going to provide. So in a nutshell, I can say that system softwares such as operating system, so assembler, compiler, loader, linker, text editor, etc., even debugger, okay, they are essential to execute our program. So I can say that is system software is a set of programs that provide support in executing the programs. System software is a set of programs that provide support to that support the operation of the computer system. Okay. So next category is application software. Application software is the set of programs written for a specific application or problem to be solved. Application software is the set of programs written for a specific application or problem to be solved. Examples, there are many examples. Railway reservation system, right, to reserve railway tickets, to reservation, cancellation, to look for availability of trains, all information. Railway reservation system for railways only, right, to reserve railway tickets only. Okay. Specific application, hospital management system, to manage all the functions of the hospital, right, hospital management system. Online shopping system such as Amazon, right. Nowadays, there are many application softwares, right. So one of the example is Amazon for online shopping. So these are the examples of application software. Application software is the set of programs written for a specific application, not a general application or problem to be solved. So what is the connection between system software? So system software means, you remember, operating system, compiler, assembler, text editor, loader, linker, debugger, etc. These are the system softwares. What is the relation between connectivity between system software and machine architecture? System softwares such as assembler, compiler, etc. are developed by keeping in mind the architecture of the machine, such as its memory, registers, instruction set, addressing modes, data formats, instruction formats, and input output. So system softwares such as assembler, compiler, etc. are normally developed by keeping in mind, that is, we must know the architecture of the machine, such as memory, registers, instruction set, addressing modes, data formats, instruction formats, and input output. To develop a system software, we must be familiar with the architecture of the computer system. To develop system software, we must be familiar with the architecture of the computer system. In the later part of the syllabus, so you will study the development of system software such as assembler, macroprocessor, loader, and linker. Okay, in the later part of the system software, you will study the design of system software such as assembler, loader, macroprocessor, linker, etc. Okay, so in the very beginning, that is I said, first we must be familiar with the architecture of some machine. Okay, and we will write programs for this machine only. First we will become familiar with the architecture of the machine. So later we write programs, assembly language programs for this particular machine. So uh, in the beginning, so architecture of simplified instructional computer and the extended version of simplified instructional computer is covered, followed by the design of assembler, macroprocessor, loader, linker, etc. So how the flow is, in the beginning, so architecture of simplified instructional computer, okay, in a hypothetical computer this is, and the architecture of SIC slash XE, that is extended version of simplified instructional computer, is covered, followed by the design of assembler, macroprocessor, loader, linker, etc. Okay, right. This completes introduction of system software. Next we will move to architecture of the machines, simplified instructional computer. Okay, right. So we will design, so first we will imagine one computer with some architecture. So for this computer, first we will become familiar about this computer. Okay, complete architecture of this hypothetical imaginary computer we will become familiar. So later we will write program, we will learn how to design assemblers for this computer. Okay, so what is simplified instructional computer? Okay, simplified instructional computer is a hypothetical or imaginary computer that includes the hardware features most often found on real machines. What is simplified instructional computer? It is a hypothetical or imaginary computer that includes the hardware features most often found on real machines. There are two versions. There are two versions of simplified instructional computer. One is SIC standard model. SIC standard model, and another one is SIC slash XE. SIC slash XE. This is extended version of the standard model. XE, this is the extended version of standard module. Okay. So right, SIC slash XE, that is it is upward compatible. That is programs written for SIC can run on SIC slash XE. Okay? Program assembly language programs written for simplified instructional computer can also be run on the extended version of the SIC. Okay. Next, SIC machine architecture. This is important. So in the examination, you will be asked to explain architecture of SIC. There are two versions of the SIC. First one is SIC, and second version is SIC slash XE. So in the examination, you will be asked to explain architecture of SIC or explain architecture of SIC slash XE. These are the two possible questions. Explain architecture of SIC, simplified instructional computer, or explain architecture of SIC slash XE. Right? So SIC architecture comprises of 7 components. SIC architecture consists of 7 components. So first one is memory. Okay. Second one is register. Okay. So third one is data formats. Fourth one is instruction formats. Fifth one is addressing modes. Sixth one is instruction set. And seventh one is input output. So if the question is explain the architecture of SIC, so you should cover these 7 components. You should list out these 7 components, and you should write in detail about each of the 7 components. So SIC architecture consists of which 7 components? Okay, number one, SIC architecture, SIC machine architecture consists of number one, memory, number two, registers, number three, data formats, number four, instruction formats, number five, addressing modes, number six, instruction set, and number seven, input and output. Okay, you should write list out 7 components, and you should briefly describe each of the 7 components. So we will move one by one. How much memory the SIC machine has? We'll see how much memory. Okay, SIC has 2 raised to 15 equals 32,768 bytes of memory. Okay, in memory what you have to write? SIC, simplified instructional computer, has 2 raised to 15, that is equal to 32,768 bytes of memory. So second point is memory is organized into memory locations. So each box is a memory location here. Each box is a memory location. The size of each memory location is 1 byte, 8 bits. So memory is organized into memory locations. These cells, each cell is one memory location. Memory is organized into memory locations. So size of each memory location is 1 byte, that is 8 bits. Okay. So 3 consecutive bytes of memory, 3 consecutive memory locations form one word. One memory location is 8 bits, that is 1 byte. One memory location is 1 byte, that is 8 bits. So 3 consecutive memory locations form one word, that is 24 bit, 3 byte. 3 consecutive memory locations form one word. 3 consecutive memory locations, 3 continuous bytes of memory. So they form one word. Okay, so 24 bits, continuous 24 bits form one word. Okay, so this is about the memory. What about the registers? SIC, what about second component is register. Okay. So SIC, simplified instructional computer, contains 5 registers, each of 24 bits. This is very, very important. Right? SIC has how many registers? 5 registers. The size of each register is 24 bits, 3 bytes. Each register, the size of each register is 3 bytes, that is 24 bits. Right? So, which are the registers? So, first register is called accumulator. First register is called accumulator. So its mnemonic is A. Register A. Register A is also called accumulator. It is 24-bit register. Okay. So every register has a unique number. Every register has a unique number. So register A, accumulator, has a unique number 0. This accumulator is used to store the data that is required in arithmetic operations. Accumulator stores the data, not the address. Accumulator stores the data that is used in arithmetic operations, addition, subtraction. Okay. Second register is called index register. Second register is called index register. This is also 24-bit. Okay, index register. So the mnemonic for index register is X. Mnemonic for index register is X. X means index register. Okay, the register number is 1. Register number 1 is for index register. So this index register is used to store the address. Okay, right? Index register is used to store the address of the memory location, not the data. Okay. Third one is linkage register. Third register is linkage register. So mnemonic is L. Register L is called linkage register. Register L is called linkage register. So this register stores the return address. Okay, when so JSub instruction is used to call a particular subroutine. JSub instruction is used to jump to subroutine. This instruction jump to subroutine. Okay, JSub. This instruction used to if JSub instruction is executed, control transfers to the particular subroutine. Okay, so before the control transfer to the subroutine, so program counter contains the address of the next instruction. Program counter contains the address of the next instruction. That address of the next instruction that is present in the program counter, that is assigned to this linkage register. Okay, so linkage register stores the return address. Okay, right? Linkage register stores the return address. That will be used later when the control comes back. Okay, this return address will be used to continue the execution. Okay, right? Next, right? So what is the difference between register X and L? Register X stores address of the memory location. Register L is specifically meant for storing the return address. So register number 2. So 3 registers are over: accumulator, index register, and linkage register. Okay. Next, program counter. Program counter. So program counter contains the address of the next instruction to be executed, to be fetched from the for execution. What program counter? Program counter is a 24-bit register. Program counter is a 24-bit register. It contains the address of the next instruction to be fetched for execution, to be fetched and executed. Program counter is a 24-bit register. It contains the address of the next instruction to be fetched for execution. So the unique number for program counter is 8. Right? Right. Next, status word register. Status word register. So the mnemonic for status word register is SW. SW means status word register. So register number is 9. Register number is 9. So this status register stores the condition codes. Right? This status word register stores the condition codes. So normally what we do is we compare. Normally we compare the content of accumulator with the content of, say, memory location. Normally we compare the content of accumulator with the content of memory location. Depending upon those, the condition code status word register contains the condition code values in the status word register. Suppose if the content of accumulator is greater than the content of memory location, then status word register contains the value greater than. If the content of accumulator, suppose in the comparison instruction, compare CMP memory location. So a content of accumulator will be compared with the content of memory location. Okay. If the content of accumulator is greater than the content of memory location, so status word register is initialized with the condition code greater than. If the content of accumulator is less than the content of memory location, for example, then the status word register contains the condition code value less than. Right? If the content of accumulator is equal to the content of memory location, then the status word register is initialized with the condition code value equals, like this. Right? So status word register contains condition code values less than, equal to, greater than, like that. Okay. So SIC does not have any stack. It uses the linkage register to store the return address. It is difficult to write recursive program. A programmer has to maintain memory because stack is not there. No, it is difficult to write recursive program because we don't have stack. A programmer has to maintain memory for return addresses when he or she write more than one layer of function call. So this is about registers. Okay, so how many registers are there? SIC has 5 registers. Which are those? Accumulator designated as A, number is 0. Index register designated as X, number is 1. Linkage register designated as L, value is 2. Program counter designated as PC, value 8. And status word register designated as SW, value is 9. So what are the functions? I already explained. Okay. Accumulator stores the data, index register stores the address of the memory location, linkage register stores the return address, program counter contains the address of the next instruction to be fetched for execution, status word contains condition codes. Okay, right. Next, data formats. So this data formats tells how different type of data is stored. You know, integer data you have, character data you have, floating point number you have. So these data formats describe how each type of data is stored. Okay, so each integer value is stored as a 24-bit binary number. Remember, each integer value, say 4 for example, each integer value is stored as a 24-bit binary number. To store each integer value, 3 memory locations are required. To store each integer value, you need 3 memory locations. 24-bit binary number. Integer is stored as a 24-bit binary number. Each integer is stored as a 24-bit binary number. Okay. Next, characters are stored using their 8-bit ASCII codes. 1 byte is sufficient to store the character value. Okay, 1 byte. One memory location is sufficient to store the character value. So characters are stored using 8-bit ASCII codes. Characters are stored using 8-bit ASCII codes. Okay. And SIC do not have floating point hardware. SIC do not have floating point hardware. You cannot store floating point number in the SIC machine. You cannot store floating point numbers in the SIC machine. So how the negative numbers are stored? Okay, negative numbers are stored. Negative numbers are stored as a 2's complement of a binary number. Negative numbers are stored as a 2's complement of a binary number. For example, you want to store -4. Okay, suppose you want to store -4. N is 4 here. Okay, right? So 2n minus 1. Compute 2n minus 1. 2 raised to 4 minus 1 this is. 2 raised to 4 minus 1. 2 raised to 4 minus 1 is what? 2 raised to 4 is 16. 2 raised to 4. Suppose you want to store how -4 is stored. Okay. 2 raised to n minus 1 this is. So 2 raised to 4. 2 raised to 4 is 16. 16 minus 1 is 15. 2 raised to 4 is 16. 16 minus 1 is 15. So what is the binary equivalent of 15? 8 4 to 1 code, 8 4 to 1 code, 8 plus 4 12 plus 2 14 plus 1 15. So 4 ones is the binary equivalent of 15. So negative value is stored as first 20 bits 0, last 21, 22, 23, 24th bit is 1 1. 2's complement is stored as a 24-bit binary number like this. First 20 bits 0 and remaining 4 bits is 1. Okay. So SIC do not have a mechanisms to store the floating point values. Okay. Right. Next, instruction formats. What is a format to store instructions? Okay. All the instructions in SIC machine, load, store, compare, add, like that. All instructions in SIC machine has this particular format. All instructions in SIC machine has this particular format. Okay, it is a 24-bit format. This is 15 bits plus 1, 16 bits plus 8, 24 bits. So all instructions have a 24-bit format. All instructions have a common format. Okay, so all the instructions in SIC has this particular format. Okay, so first 8 bits are reserved for opcode, that is add, subtract, load, store, like that, opcode. First 8 bits are reserved for opcode. So ninth bit is reserved for specifying the addressing mode. Ninth bit is reserved for the addressing mode. So SIC supports two addressing modes. One is direct addressing mode and indexed addressing mode. SIC support two addressing modes. One is direct addressing mode and indexed addressing mode. If it is direct addressing mode, then X is initialized to 0. If it is indexed addressing mode, this ninth bit is initialized to 1. Okay. So first 8 bits of code, ninth bit specifies what type of addressing mode is. 0 for direct addressing mode, 1 for this is indexed addressing mode, this ninth bit. So remaining 15 bits are used to store the address of the memory location. Remaining 15 bits are stores the address of the memory location. Okay. So you know the memory size of SIC is 2 raised to 15, isn't it? 32,768. The SIC has a memory of 2 raised to 15, that is 32,768 bytes. So 15 bits are reserved for address. Okay. Next, addressing modes. What is addressing mode? Addressing modes specify how to calculate effective address of the operand using the content of registers and or data present in the instruction. What is addressing mode? Addressing modes specify how to calculate the effective address of the operand using content of registers and or data present in the instruction. Okay, right? So SIC supports two addressing modes. I already said, direct and indexed addressing mode. In direct addressing mode, how the address of the memory location is computed is whatever address specified is the address of the memory location. Okay. In direct addressing mode, whatever the address specified here is the address of the, this TM is target address. Target address is nothing but whatever the address specified here in the instruction is the address. This is direct addressing mode. I will give one example of a direct addressing mode. See here. This is the example of a direct addressing mode. See here. So opcode is LDA. So opcode is LDA, 8-bit opcode, right? LDA alpha. Alpha is a label for some memory location with some address. Alpha is a label for some memory location address. Okay. So what this instruction tells is load to accumulator. Load to accumulator. The data stored in the memory location whose label is alpha is stored in the accumulator. Okay. The data stored in the memory location, the data stored in the memory location, say alpha, label is alpha. The data stored in the memory location, address is specified here. Okay. The data stored, 3-byte data stored in the memory location alpha will be loaded into accumulator. So here address, the target address is suppose alpha. Alpha is a label for the memory location 1400. Let us assume alpha is a label for the memory location 1400. Alpha is a memory location. Alpha is a label for the memory location starting from 1400. Okay, right? So the integer data that is stored in 1400, 1401, 1402. Each integer data occupies 3 bytes. Each integer data occupies 3 bytes. Right? So the data stored in memory location 1400, 401, 402. Okay, integer data occupies 3 bytes. So it will be stored in the accumulator. This is a direct addressing mode. This is the example of direct addressing mode. Understood? Load the content of memory location to accumulator here. Suppose the content of address 1400, 1400, 1400. Target address is 1400. Okay, direct target address is whatever address specified in the instruction is the whatever address specified in the instruction is target address. So similarly, store the content of accumulator, store the data that is stored in the accumulator again into the memory location. Store the data which is in memory location into the address into the memory location 1400. So target address is whatever the address specified here. Content STA means store the content of accumulator into the memory location. LDA means load the content of memory location to accumulator. STA means store the content of accumulator into the memory location. This is example of direct addressing mode. This is example of direct addressing mode. Okay. So here next one is indexed addressing mode. Indexed addressing mode. In indexed addressing mode, how the target address is calculated is target address is nothing but the address specified in the memory location. Target address is the address specified in the memory location plus index register. We will specify index register also here sometimes. So in some instructions, okay, okay, LDA like that. X we specify. So how the address is calculated? This address plus the content of index register. Content of index target. How in indexed addressing mode, how the target address is calculated? Whatever the address specified in the instruction plus the content of index register X. Whatever the index register specified, okay, the content of index register plus the address target address plus the address specified in the instruction. This total of this will become the target address. Okay, this is about indirect addressing. Okay, so SIC machine supports two addressing modes: direct addressing mode and indexed addressing mode. Next one is instruction set. Instruction set. What is instruction set? Instruction set is a set of instructions supported, recognized by a particular machine. What is instruction set? Instruction set is a set of instructions that is allowed. The set of instructions that can be recognized. Set of instructions that are permitted by the machine. Every machine comes with some n number of instructions in the instruction set. Every machine comes with some n number of instructions, say 70 or 80 or 100 instructions. Okay, it will recognize only those instructions. Instruction set. So SIC supports load and store instructions. Okay, right? SIC support, there are instructions to perform load and store operations. Okay, there are instructions to perform arithmetic operations. There are instructions to perform comparison operations. Okay, there are instructions to perform conditional jump, conditional and unconditional jump operations. Okay, right? So these are the possible operations that is SIC supports instructions to perform various operations. Which are the operations? Load and store operations, arithmetic operations, comparison operations, right? So next conditional jump operations, right? Unconditional jump operations. These are the operations. For each of the operations, the SIC machine supports instructions. Okay, right? For load operations, it supports 3 instructions. For load, it supports 2 instructions. LDA means load to accumulator, load to register A, the data stored in memory location. Okay, for loading, suppose if you have data in memory location, if you have integer value in memory location, you want to load to accumulator. Suppose you have an integer value in memory location, okay, whose label is alpha. You want to load the data in memory location to register A, accumulator. You can use LDA, integer value, right? Load to accumulator, the data stored in memory location. Right? LDX is used to load the data in memory location to index register. Okay, right? So LDA is used to store data which is in memory location to register A. LDX is used to store the address that is stored in memory location to register X. Register X stores only the address, not the data. Register X stores only the address, not the data, right? So LDA load to accumulator and LDX load to index register. From where the data is loaded in these two instructions, data is loaded from memory location. In the case of LDA, integer value that is in memory location will be loaded to accumulator. In the case of LDX instruction, the address of the memory location will be loaded to index register. Okay. So STA, what is STA? For store operations, STA instruction is supported, or STX is also supported. Okay. STA means store the content of accumulator, which is data, into the memory location, into the particular address. STA means store the content of memory location, store the content of register A into the memory location whose address is labeled with alpha. What is STA? Store the content of STA, store the content of register A into the memory location, okay, whose label is alpha. Okay, right? The data in register A will be loaded into memory location whose address is alpha. Similarly, STX means what? STX alpha means what? Store the content of register A, X into the memory location alpha. STX alpha means store the content of register X into the memory location alpha. Right? So next, arithmetic instructions. Okay? Next. To perform arithmetic operations, the SIC machine has the instructions add, subtract, multiply and divide. Okay, right? You can add the content of accumulator with the content of memory location. You can subtract the content of accumulator with the content of memory location. You can multiply the content of accumulator with the content of memory location. Similarly, you can divide the content of accumulator with the content of memory location. That is possible. Okay, right? So okay. So here every instruction you have register A, that is accumulator, and a word in memory. Okay, each word occupies 3 bytes. You know, each word occupies 3 bytes. Integer, if you want to store each integer value, 3 memory locations are required. 3 memory locations are required to store each integer value. Okay. For example, see add alpha, add instruction alpha. Alpha means memory location. So every instruction will have register A and memory, a word in memory. So here, so the content of 3 consecutive memory locations whose label is alpha. So you know integer occupies 3 memory locations, isn't it? Each integer occupies 3 memory locations, 24 bits. Each integer occupies 3 bytes, 3 memory locations. Okay, what is how this instruction is interpreted? The data, the integer data stored in 3 memory locations whose label is alpha. Alpha is the address, alpha is a label for the address of the first memory location. Okay, right? So add the content of memory location with the content of accumulator. Add the content of 3 memory locations with the content of accumulator. Accumulator is also 24-bit length, isn't it? Accumulator, each register is 24-bit length. Add the content of memory location alpha and the content of register A. Okay, add the content of memory location, which is 3 bytes integer value, plus the content of register A, and store the result in register A. Store the result in register A. This is an example for add instruction. Similarly for subtract, multiply and division instructions. Okay, comparison instruction. For comparison, you have comparison. So comparison instruction involves a register A and a word in memory. Comparison instruction consists of comparison instruction involves register A and a word in memory. Okay, for example, comp alpha. Alpha is the label for the memory location. Alpha is the label for the memory location. Okay, so here what is compared? The content of register A will be compared with the content of memory location alpha, whose label is alpha. Here comp means compare. The alpha means the content of register A is compared with the content of memory location alpha. Memory location alpha It is a 3 byte length, right? Each integer occupies 3 bytes. So based on this, the condition codes are set. Based on this, status word register stores the condition codes value. If the content of register A is less than the content of memory location, status word register contains the condition code less than. Okay. If the content of register A equals the content of memory location alpha, then the status word register contains condition code equals, not plus, this is equals, not plus. Okay. If the content of register A is greater than the content of memory location alpha, then the status word register contains the condition codes greater than. Okay. This is about comparison. Next, conditional jump. Okay. Suppose JLE suppose if I write the instruction JLE, suppose if the instruction is JLE some label, JLE some label. Okay. So if the status word register contains the condition code less than, then control transfer to the particular label. After comparison, next instruction is JLE, for example, or JEQ. So, okay, so jump according based on the condition. So what the condition? JLE some label. Suppose if I write JLE followed by some label, JLE some label loop, right? Okay, right? So here what happens? The content of, that is, if the status word register contains the condition code less than or equal to, if the status word register contains the value less than or equal to, suppose, then jump to subroutine. If the status is JEQ label, if the status word register contains the value equal to, then jump to loop. If the JGT some label, if the instruction is JGT label, means if the status word register contains the condition code greater than, then jump to this label. Otherwise, next instruction will be executed. Test condition code and jump accordingly. Test condition code and jump accordingly. Where the condition codes are stored? Condition codes are stored in status word register. Condition codes are stored in status word register. There is a special register meant for this, isn't it? Status word, to store the condition codes. There is a 24-bit status word register. So for calling the subroutine, you have an instruction called JSub. For calling the subroutine, you have the instruction JSub. Okay, JSub label, name of the subroutine you want to call. JSub and name of the subroutine. JSub and name of the subroutine you have to call. Okay. So before the control is transferred to the particular subroutine, so you know program counter. Suppose if the instruction JSub some name of the subroutine. So suppose jump to this particular subroutine. This instruction executed. So before the control transfer to the subroutine, so you know program counter contains the address of the next instruction to be fetched and executed. Okay, right? So here the control is transferring to the subroutine. Okay, so program control contains the address of the next instruction, the instruction that appears after JSub. Okay, so control is not transferring to the next instruction, but control is going to the subroutine. Okay, so the return address is the program counter contains the address of the next instruction to be executed. So the content of program counter will be assigned to linkage register. The content of program counter will be, that is return address, will be stored in the linkage register, register L. Okay, and control transfer to the particular subroutine. Okay, return address is stored in linkage register. Return from subroutine, or sub is means return from subroutine. So control transfer to the subroutine. Where the control transfers? So here what happens? You know the linkage register L. Register L contains the return address. No, register L contains the return address that was assigned before the control transfer takes place. So So now the program counter will be initialized with the register L. The program counter will be set with the value of register L. Register L contains the return address. Next, input output. What is input output? You know, input means transferring one byte of data from input to device to rightmost digit of a register of the SIC machine. What is input? Input means transfer of one byte of data. Input means transfer of one byte of data from input to device, to rightmost byte of a register. You know register, what is the size of each register? 24 bits, 3 bytes. The size of register is 3 bytes. So first byte is the leftmost byte. So the next byte is the middle byte. So third byte is the rightmost byte. Every register contains 3 bytes. So leftmost byte, first byte is leftmost byte, second byte is middle byte, and third byte is rightmost byte. So input means transfer of one byte of data from input device to the rightmost byte of a register. So what is output? Output means transferring one byte of data from rightmost byte of a register to output device. Output means, what is output? Output means transferring one byte of data from rightmost byte of a register to the output device. Okay, so SIC uses 3 instructions for input output. To accomplish input output, SIC, simplified instructional computer, provides 3 instructions. So first instruction is TD. TD instruction used to test whether the device is ready or not. If the device is ready, status word register is set with the condition code less than. Test device, before the data transfer takes place, first we have to test whether the device is ready or not, whether the input device is ready or input or output device is ready or not. First we have to test whether the input device is ready or not using TD. TD instruction used to test whether the input or output device is ready to transfer the data or not. Okay, right? So if the device is ready, then status word register contains the condition code less than. If the device is not ready, then status word register contains the condition code equals to. If the device is not ready, if the device is busy, it is already right. If the device is already busy, not idle, then the status word register contains the condition code equals. Okay. Next, read. Read instruction is to read data. Okay, read instruction is used to read data, okay, from the device, okay, right, into the accumulator. Okay, read data is used to read data from the device to the, okay, to the accumulator. Okay, read instruction is used to read data from the device specified by yum into the accumulator. So write data is used to write to the device specified by yum. This WD instruction is used to write to device specified by yum. So write instruction used to write rightmost byte of register A into the device specified by yum. With WD instruction, rightmost byte of register A will be written into the device specified by yum. So we'll see example of the usage of these instructions. Okay, see here. So this is a sample program. Okay, so see here. So we have 2 devices. Each device is having a unique number. So right, each device is having input number. Input device has a unique number hexadecimal F1. Input device has a unique number hexadecimal F1. So output device has a unique number hexadecimal 05. Okay, each device is having a number. Okay, so first provide a label for each of the devices. First provide a symbolic name for each of the devices. Okay, we want to read from the particular input device. whatever data we have read, we want to put into the output device. Okay, we want to read data from the input device to the accumulator, and from the accumulator we want to transfer the data to the output device. Okay, so here, so every program has three fields. One is label field. This is the label field. Okay, you take a SIC assembly language program has majorly three fields. Okay, three fields. Okay, and an optional field. This is for comments, for writing the comments. So first field is meant for writing the labels. Second field is for mnemonics, instructions, mnemonics. Okay, right? Mnemonics. So second field is for operands used by the instruction. Second field is for operand. First field is label field. Opcode field. Label field is first field. Field number two is opcode field. First field number one is label field. Field number two is opcode field, and field number three is operand field. So this remaining space you can use for writing the comments for each of the instruction. Okay, so this, okay, first see here, first provide label for each of the devices. So in div means input device, give some name. In div means input device. Byte. So byte is an instruction that can be used to allocate 1 byte of memory for storing the values. It is just like declaring a character variable, char ch, char ch. So char ch, what happens? So compiler will allocate 1 byte of memory. Compiler will allocate 1 byte of memory. Okay. So ch equals some x. You can assign any character into that memory, already allocated memory location here. So byte instruction is used to allocate 1 byte of memory. Okay, byte instruction allocate 1 byte of memory. So after that, after the memory is allocated, the value f1 will be stored in that memory location. The hexadecimal value f1 is stored in that memory location. Okay, so this instruction provides symbolic name for the device number, input device. F1 in div is a symbolic name for the input device, and the device number is f1. Similarly, one more device, output device, byte x05. Okay, 05 is the device number for the output device. So I said byte instruction is used, reserves 1 byte of memory to store the device number of the output device. So byte instruction will store 1 byte of memory, 8 bits. Okay, so 1 byte of memory is reserved to store the device number hexadecimal 05. Okay, for the output device. So out dv is the label for the device number 05. In div is the label for the device number input device f1. F1 is input device. Okay. 05 is the label is a device number for the output device. So next we want to store the temporary data temporarily in some memory location. So for that we are defining one more variable. Okay, right, reserve byte. So reserve byte, this instruction is used to reserve as much number of bytes of data. Suppose if I write that, if I write data reserve byte 10, for example, 10 bytes of memory will be allocated. So byte will allocate only 1 byte. RESB, this instruction will allocate specified number of bytes of data. Allocate memory. Allocate specified number of bytes of memory. Reserve byte. RESB means reserve byte. So this instruction will reserve sufficient number of bytes of. If I write data RESB 10, means 10 bytes of memory will be reserved. 10 bytes of memory will be reserved for, say, array some data like that. Okay, so here we are reserving only 1 byte of memory. 1 byte memory will be allocated, reserved. Okay, whatever number specified, that much number of bytes of data is reserved. Okay, all right. So first we want to transfer data from the input device number f1 to accumulator, and from the accumulator we want to transfer the data to the output device. Okay, first test whether the input device is ready or not. Test whether the input device is ready or not. Okay, in loop is some label. In loop is some label. Okay, test device. Test which device? In div. In div means test device F1. It means test device F1. Test whether the device F1 is ready. Okay, right? So I said that status word register contains the appropriate status codes. Status word register contains appropriate status code. If the device is ready, the condition code less than is status word register contains less than. If the device is not ready, if the device is busy, the condition code contains less than. Equal to. Less than means the device is ready. Equal to means not ready, busy. Less than means ready. Equal to means not ready, that is busy. Jump if equal to. Jump if equal to means busy. Jump if equal to means if the status word register contains equals. If the status word register contains equals means the device is not ready. If the status word register contains equals means the device is not ready. In loop. Control goes to this in loop. Okay. So the program loops here only till the device is ready. Loop until the device is ready. TD instruction to test the input device. So JEQ in loop is used to loop until the device is ready. Suppose if the device is ready, then immediately the status word register contains less than. Okay, jump equal to is false. If the status word register contains less than value, jump equal to will become false. Then the device is ready. So read from input device into register A. Read from input device. Read 1 byte of data from the input device. Read 1 byte of data from the input device and store in the rightmost byte of a register. You know, register has 3 bytes. Every register is 3 bytes. For first byte is leftmost byte, you can say. Second byte is middle byte. So third byte is rightmost byte. Okay, so this RD in div input device. So this instruction will read 1 byte of data from the input device and stored into the rightmost byte of a register. Next, STCH. Okay, STCH, that is store the rightmost byte that was in register to the memory location data. Whatever the data that is read from the input device, now it was in register A. Now yes, with STCH data, that is the whatever the data that is read, that is an accumulator, right? Rightmost byte of an accumulator. Okay, store the data that was just now read again into the memory location data. Okay, right? Now the data read from the input device is in memory location data. Now we want to transfer the data to the output device. Whatever the data read from the input device, we want to put into the output device. Again, so test, we want to use the output device TD, test output device, test TD output device. So output device number is X5, 05. So test device number 05, jump equal to, if the device is not ready, loop until the device is ready. LDCH data, load data byte into register A from the memory location. From the memory location, the data that was read from the input device was in this memory location. Load the data from memory location into the register, into the rightmost byte of a register. Okay. Now WD out DV. Okay. If the device is ready, now you can. As long as the device is not ready, this program loops here only. Loop until the device is ready. So if the device is ready, immediately transfer the value data that was just now read from the input device to the accumulator, to the rightmost byte of an accumulator. From the accumulator, so WD instruction is used to write the content of accumulator to the output device. WD instruction is used to write the content of accumulator, rightmost byte, the accumulator, into the output device. So this is an instruction that make use of input output device. Three instructions are used: TD to test whether the device is ready or not. So RD instructions to read from the input device into the accumulator, and write instruction is used to write the data from the accumulator to the output device. Okay. Okay. So this example, you have seen this particular example. Okay. Right. Then some more examples, some more programming examples are there. Just see here. How to define a character. See here how to define a character. You can observe here. See. So byte is used to reserve 1 byte of memory. I said no, byte. So label name, particular character name. Okay. So suppose you want to reserve space for the character Z. So you can use CHARZ byte C. Okay. You can write C for character. Okay. C for character, hex for hexadecimal. Okay. C means character. So 1 byte of data will be reserved for storing a character value Z. And the symbolic name for this character Z is char Z. Okay. Symbolic name for character Z is wherever character Z appears, so symbolic name Z will be substituted. Okay. Wherever character Z appears, the symbolic name Z will be replaced. Similarly, C1 reserve byte 1. So this instruction will reserve 1 byte of memory. Okay, this instruction will reserve 1 byte of memory. Right. The name of the variable is C1. This instruction will reserve 1 byte of memory. The name of the variable is C1. Okay. So alpha reserve word 1. So we are defining one word variable here. Here we are defining one word variable, 3 bytes variable. Alpha reserve word means we are reserving one word, and then the label for the 3 memory locations is alpha. Here, what about this 5 word 5? So byte is similar to word. So here, so what is this? Word reserve 1 byte of memory. Word byte will reserve 1 byte of memory, and word will reserve 1 word of memory. 1 word means 3 locations, 3 bytes of memory. To store each integer value, you need 3 memory locations. To store each integer value, so you need 3 memory locations, 1 word. Each integer value is stored as 1 word. Okay. If you want to store 5, for example, if you want to store constant 5, so then you have to define the assembler directive word will allocate memory for one integer for storing. Word will allocate memory for storing 1 integer value. Okay. So you can assign the value 5 there. So 5 is a symbolic name for this. 5 is a symbolic name for the number 5. Wherever 5 occurs, so the integer value 5 will be substituted. Okay. So here LDA 5 means what? Load constant 5. 5 means wherever 5 symbolic name 5 occurs, 5 integer value 5 will be substituted. Load 5 to the accumulator. Load 5 to accumulator. Store the content of accumulator, which is 5, to the memory location alpha. Alpha is already defined as a word. Okay. Load the data of 5, integer 5, into the accumulator. Store the content of accumulator into the memory location alpha. Next, LDCH character Z. So load character Z into register A. So this instruction will load the character Z into register A. Character Z, what is character Z? We have defined already, no? With byte. Load character Z into register A. So STCH means what? Whatever character that is Z that is stored in register A, you store it into the variable C1. STCH C1 means whatever character that is stored in register A, that is character Z is stored in register A. Character Z is stored in register A, that will be loaded into the memory location into the variable C1. So these are the sample assembly language programs. Okay, right? These are also some of the examples of the assembly language programs. These are assembly languages instructions for only SIC machine. Okay, these are the assembly language instructions for the SIC machine. These are the different instructions supported by the SIC machine. Okay, LDA, STA, LDX, LDA. These are all the instructions that are supported by the machine. Okay, right? So these are executable instructions: LDA, LDX, STCH. They are all executable instructions. JLT, jump less than, if less than. So byte, reserve byte, reserve word, all those things, they are assembler called assembler directives. They are not executable instructions. Okay, byte, they instruct the assembler to do something. Okay, they instruct the assembler to reserve some memory, like that. Byte, word, reserve byte, reserve word, they are all assembler directives. They are not executable instructions. Okay, they are not executable. These instructions for the assembler, not for the machine. These instructions: byte, word, reserve, resb, reserve byte, resw, reserve word, these are all assembler directives. They are meant for assembler. These are all the instructions that are supported by the SIC machine: LDA, STA, LDX. So LDA means load to accumulator, the data that is in memory location 0. Okay, right, like that. So store the content of accumulator to index register. LDX means stored load to index register. The address that is stored in index will go to index register. LDA means what? Again same thing. So here this is the address. This is the example of indexed addressing mode. See, observe here. This is the example of indexed addressing mode. LDA alpha comma x. LDA alpha comma x. Suppose the alpha contains the value alpha is a label for the memory location 1400. Let us assume alpha is the address of the memory location 1400. 1400. Alpha is the address of the memory location. Alpha is a label for the memory location 1400. Index register X contains the value say 100. 100 is the address, not the value. Okay, 100 is the address value. Okay, right? So how to calculate in the indexed addressing mode? How to calculate the effective address? This address 1400 plus content of index register 100, 1500. Okay, 1400 plus content of index register 1500. The address of the memory location 1500 is loaded into accumulator. The address of the memory location 1500 will be loaded into accumulator. This is the best example for indexed addressing mode. Okay, so this is also another example of indexed addressing mode. Okay, this is direct addressing mode. So JSUB instruction, jump to subroutine read, jump to subroutine read, jump to subroutine read. Okay, right? These are the examples. Okay, of some of the assembly language instructions. I said word or byte reserve 1 byte of storage. These two assembler directives reserve 1 byte or 1 word of storage. Word will reserve 1 word, byte will reserve 1 byte. Reserve word or reserve byte reserve sufficient number of bytes depending upon how much you require. RESW 10 means 10 words are reserved. RESB 10 means 10 bytes of memory is reserved for storing the data. Okay, right? So in the next class, so these are the sample symbols that are used. So in the next class, I will take up the architecture of SIC/XE. Okay. In the next class, I will take up the architecture of SIC/XE. SIC/XE is the extended version of the standard SIC model. Okay, right? SIC/XC is the extended version of the standard model. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.